Hey everybody, what's good? It's Wes, and this is the last video for 2021. So, happy holidays, happy new year, all that kind of stuff. Hope you're doing well, whether you celebrate Christmas or anything else, and hope you're staying safe, staying warm, and yeah, having just a overall good time. But I wanted to make something a little special for the outgoing 2021 video. And it's something that I've been meaning to do for a while. I have done these in the past, but they've been Patreon exclusives. So I will put the little banner down here. You can sign up for my Patreon, and my Patreon, become a patron, for only $1 a month. And I'm never going to raise the price. It's always just going to stick at $1 a month. You're going to get like a private Discord server. You're going to get some like making of files, some PSD stuff, and even some nice tips and trick tutorial videos. And you'll get access to all the past stuff, which includes 2 or 3 episodes of this type of deal. So what are we actually doing here? What is going to be this big grand finale for 2021? Well, what we're going to be doing is what's called the Patreon Paintover. We're going to get members of our community. In this case, we have 3 artists, and we're going to look at 4 paintings. And we're going to do some critiques, some paint over, and discuss some things. So I'm going to roll the little intro. Then we're going to come back here. I'm going to talk about kind of the rules and what the expectations are going forward with these type of critiques, just to let everybody kind of aware on how they work. And then we're going to get into the critiques. We're going to look at the nitty gritty, look at some amazingly beautiful art, really refine it to the best of its ability, and we're gonna look at that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get to the last video, our Patreon Paintover for the end of 2021. All right, guys. So let's just talk about the rules real quick, okay? So being an art instructor, there's 2 trains of thought for an art instructor. Some that I've studied under are very right versus wrong. This is the right way to do it. This is the wrong way to do it. Why are you doing this? You should be doing this. Ironically, there's a lot of overlap in that type of art instructor and the type of art instructor that doesn't think stuff like cartoons or anime, manga are real art, and whatever. It takes all types. I'm just going to say it takes all types. Sometimes that's really good. If you want super hardcore structure and like, no, the best way, the easiest way, the most correct way to do something is like this, that's a great way to learn, is go with a really kind of stringent, very hardcore art instructor. It should be no surprise to all of you, I'm on the other end of the camp, to where I think that everybody brings an innate ability and vision to art. So what my job is as the instructor is to caress that vision to make it come to life. Like, for instance, it's not my job as an art teacher to make you paint like me or to make you see the world the way I see it. I'm not interested in that. I don't think there's any value to that, really, in my opinion, because I think the value that you bring to the table as an artist is you. You're the way you see it and the way you want to put stuff out into the world. That's what we really want to craft and hone. So the way I like to critique things is I, one, ask for open submissions. Only artwork that a student wants critiqued will I critique. I do not give open critiques. I request them and they are sent to me. So that's number 1. So everybody that's showing their art, a big up and big thanks to them. They are doing it of their own free will. I'm not just pulling random art and saying fix this and do that. I'm like, no. I don't play that, okay? So, and the other thing, and this is probably the most critical part, whenever somebody sends me a piece of art they would like critiqued or talked about, I also require them to send me what their intent was. What were you trying to do with this piece? Was this just a study? Was it just like a color study or a brush mixing study? Or were you trying to get likeness and resemblance? Or were you trying to build a fantasy, like imaginary thing? Like, what was the goal? Because depending on the goal, that's going to change what the outlook is and the way I approach it as an instructor. Because the rule that might work well for like looking at a photo study may not work working with imagination. They're completely different sides of the coin. So you have to know what the expectation is on the artist's side coming into it in order to give a proper critique as an art teacher or art instructor. And like I said, this is all my opinion, but I wanted to set those expectations because I'm going to keep bringing it up as we do these critiques, okay? And it's very important to just keep in mind, it is not my job to change the style of any artist. That's, if anything, as an art instructor, the way I learn best is if I try to get in the head of the artist and kind of mimic what their intent was. So what you're going to see is I might change colors slightly, but really I'm going to color pick from colors that already exist on the painting. Really, I'm not going to change a whole lot. But we're going to go through some fundamentals. We're going to go through some working from imagination, then working from photo reference, what makes a good photo reference, a lot of different things on this one. I expect this to be over an hour, maybe close to 2 hours. We're going to be doing live stuff. I'm not doing time lapse. This is all going to be here kind of as a treat for all of you for hanging out on the YouTube channel. So I would just say sit back and relax. If you want kind of a one-to-one, if you ever wanted to know what it was like to mentor with me, or if you wanted to always go to art school and be part of one of those classes, but just don't have the money or don't have the time, you're home and all that stuff. This could kind of give you that sense of being in an art class. And I want to give it to you all free of charge. Don't even need to be a patron. But like I said, if you want to be included in something like this, it's only $1 a month. You get a lot of behind the scenes stuff, some making ofs. So a lot of fun stuff that way. So with those expectations out of the way, let's finally jump in to our first student. If you're a fan of the channel, you're going to see this person's name, actually all of their names, in the credits. And the first one is going to be Cybernetic Phoenix. So let's get to it. All right, here we go. So welcome. I got a holiday beverage here. We are going to take a look at Cybernetic Phoenix's art right now. He actually provided 2 pieces for us. Let me move my mic over here. And I want to also show the Discord message. I don't want to misquote or misinterpret the intent of what any of the artists have to say. So I wanted to show what they said on the Discord in regards to what they would like to work on or focus on, or what they would like the critique to be kind of targeted towards. So first of all, thank you, Cyber, for one, being an awesome patron. He's very talkative on the Discord. Very, very cool. Love having you on the Discord, but also for giving your art up for us to be able to look at and kind of study and admire. And so Cyber says, here are 2 artworks. One is unfinished, which is a full pose plus a reference photo. And the other one is finished, and I'm going to put air quotes. The portrait, I think both look a little flat. That or there is something I can't quite pinpoint and wasn't sure how to improve or change that. So any advice on that would be nice, but overall, any feedback is more than welcome. So of course, we'll take a look. So the 2 that we're going to be looking at, so the first we have right here, the portrait, very good looking portrait. And here's the reference photo. So kind of put them, that way we can kind of click back and forth. I am using Clip Studio Paint, by the way, just for reference out there. So there's the first piece. And then the second piece is a gesture study. It was actually of a full nude model, but I've cropped it. She has her back turned, and I did crop it above the waist so it stays suitable for work. All that because the lessons that we're going to look at. So here's the image that Cyber has provided, his painting. And then here is the reference photo right here. So really the rule applies. The rules that we're going to kind of talk about and the techniques we're going to look at are going to apply really well right here. Mainly I was going to focus on the back. But let's go to this first one first. So we bring up that critique again. So it says, I think both of these studies look a little flat. And I agree, but I want to point out something. I think you've done a fantastic job transferring what you see from the reference on to the image, onto your painting. Because the reason why these paintings look flat, your reference images are flat. These are not lit very strongly. Either one. These don't have a lot of light. These have a lot of like ambient overcast light. which is soft. It's going to make for soft shadows, soft contours, soft contrasts going between each other. So the value shifts are going to be more subtle. It's harder. This is more difficult. Both of these, in my opinion, are actually really difficult references to work from. So I want to give you kudos for even attempting, because if like you and I were doing private mentorship and you're like, hey, I'd like to do this painting and this is the reference photo, I would be like, okay, we can do this. Or what I would really recommend is you find a different reference photo. This doesn't quite have enough lighting information if you're not familiar with anatomy of the face. If anatomy and perspective and value and stuff like that still comes as a little bit of not a struggle, but if it's a challenge, something like this is like hard mode, double, triple diamond expert level, because you have to infer a lot of detail. And what we're going to look at right now, whenever I hear the word flat, the first thing I think of is value. Because whenever I think flat, it means there's not a huge contrast difference. And also the shapes aren't made of form. And form just comes down to value. Just how are the edges? What's the contrast between the edges? So that's what we're going to do here. In fact, I really enjoy the colors that you've chosen here. So we're pretty much going to keep these colors. We might adjust them slightly, but I'm going to do my old tried and true. So with Clip Studio Paint, I also have a few of these opened up, the reference pictures opened up in the sub view. The sub view is actually can kind of work as your reference panel. So if you bring up a reference image, you can color pick from it. You can like flip stuff. You can turn it back and upside down and all that stuff. So very, very helpful. So I wanted to show that because this is a great way for us to be able to work side by side. Okay. So let's kind of do that. Okay. Yeah, that looks about right. So if we look at them side by side, I think likeness is great. I think you got the proportions down perfect. I mean, the nostril and might be a little high and stuff, but like that stuff, that's painting. So, you know, I'm a very figurative artist. I like observational art. I like looking at something and then transferring it to the best of my ability to a painting canvas. However, there is something to be said for artistic liberty. So the fact that, oh, the lips are a little too wide and the cheeks might blah, 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 and then, you know, that's great. I think it's great because it makes it different from the photograph. So as an artist, I think you should take artistic liberty while staying in the realm of reality. It's like if you see a good caricature artist, you wouldn't say that their image is realistic, but it's believable. And we've had a YouTube video about that, the difference between realism versus believability. We want to make sure that our portrait has likeness, and likeness comes down to proportions and distances away from things. So how far is the nose from the eyes? How far is the mouth from the ears? How big is the skull? What's the shape of it? You know, that stuff. But really what it comes down to is likeness. You want to get almost a personality. It's like good stand-up comedians talk about when they do an impression of somebody, it's not that they want to get the impression perfect. Like they don't want it to sound exactly like the person. They're taking a lot of these very noticeable things and kind of exaggerating them a little bit. And I think there's a lot to learn there. So what that means is I think your proportions here are perfect. They're where they need to be. The stuff is here. I can tell that this is the same person. So well done there. What I am going to do, I'm going to do my little value check trick. And the reason why, I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer right down here. I'm going to fill this with black. Let me fill it with, you can either fill it with complete black or complete white. And then you're going to change the blending mode here to color. Now, if you notice, and I don't think there's a really easy way to do that here. I know in some other art softwares there is an easy way to make this grayscale, but we don't need to. This can actually be a good training to see if you can train your eye to see value instead of color. But you'll see the reason why this looks flat is I would argue the darks are not dark enough and the lights are not light enough. Your midtones are perfect. In fact, I think your midtones are exactly where they need to be. So all we're going to do is add some shapes and some value contrast for our shadows, like the ambient occlusion, where light cannot hit because it's being obstructed by something. That's going to help us give form. And then once we add those shadows, you're going to notice a little bit, but then after the shadows, once we add a few highlights, oh man, you're going to be blown away. And we're not even going to change your colors. We're going to keep your colors exactly the way they are. So like I said, this lighting is just flat for the picture, which means, congratulations, you did a great job transferring it over if you think it looks flat, because your reference is flat. So, so you did it. Good work. So I'm going to make a new layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to color pick from here. So I'm a big fan. My brushes that I use, by the way, are by Ray Frienden. I'm a big fan of Ray's brush pack. He has over 1,000 brushes for like $15, and they're all amazing. I have the Photoshop, but he spells it F-A-U-X, like fake toe shop, I guess. But they feel really good. I love the wet brush and then the standard brush because they allow me to get really hard edges, but then I can also kind of blend, and that's what we're going to do here. So the first thing I want to notice, I'm going to zoom out on both of these. And what I want to notice, see, you're starting to get the good shapes, the good shadow shapes. Like here's a good shadow shape. Here's a good shadow shape. Here's a good shadow shape. Yeah, like right here. And you can see where you're starting to transfer those over. So while we're staying zoomed out, let's put some darker darks in here. So I'm going to color pick. And then I'm going to bring this over and actually darken it. Not quite to pitch black, because since this is outside, there's not going to really be digital black in here. There's going to be some light everywhere. Okay. So let me bring this up. I'm going to come in and I'm going to add kind of this differentiator right here. I'm going to add a little bit darker right here. I'm going to add a little bit darker right here. In fact, I think the entire shirt can be a little darker because you see on the reference, the skin tone is lighter than the shirt, right? So if I were to, let me color pick this, and then I'm gonna darken it a little bit, not quite as dark as our shadows, but close, okay? So I'm gonna darken this a little bit. Lightness, saturation. Okay, I was making sure I was painting at 0% saturation because I don't want to introduce any colors, you know? Yeah, I don't want to introduce any new colors to it. We got that. I'm actually gonna maybe here, kind of here. So you're already seeing a little bit. It looks like behind the neck is already kind of heading to the back. Does that make sense? So we're also going to look and kind of eyeball to see if there's any darker darks. So since, even though we're getting diffuse light, meaning there's a lot of clouds blocking direct sunlight, you're still getting light from the top, right? And you can really tell this whenever we start doing the forehead and the nose, okay? But we can tell, so we want to treat that as a shape. We want to treat it as a piece of form, as a three-dimensional object. So it's like painting in a sphere. So since the skull is kind of coming in that circle, the cranium part is a circle right there, we're actually going to come in here and do this almost like it's cupping, the hair is cupping into here. So you're going to put those shadows up near the bottom, and that highlight's going to be near the top, okay? And then the same thing here. You're going to notice, I am going to zoom in a little on this one. You see this darker area right here where that hair kind of flips over? You're now seeing the side and the underside of the hair. We're going to do that with ours as well. And it's going to be helpful to separate where the skull is actually meeting the hairline. So we're going to do that. And like I said, your proportions are perfectly, like, they're really on point. So I'm just going to use your proportions. Kind of come over here like so. And then you can see here, it's even being a little darker in the recesses right here to where you can see that angle. And you got that angle great right here for that eyebrow, the eyebrow bone. I'm here where the eye socket is and then going over where the cheek. But notice how this is darker than both the skin tone and the hair. Even though the hair is dark, it's dark hair, it's black hair, or maybe like a dark brown hair. It's still lighter because it's getting hit with light. It's lighter than the stuff that's in the shadow. So whenever you hear an art instructor or somebody tell you, paint what you see, not what you think you see, this is a perfect example of that, because we think, oh, well, the hair is dark. So if you look right here, I can see where you did the shadow shape, and it is darker than the skin. You got that totally right. The logic checks out. However, because that hair is dark, your mind might overcompensate it. Your mind might think it's darker than what it really is. So that's why I really highly suggest running kind of this value filter over stuff to really see what your values look like. And I think you're going to be stunned at some of the stuff. So we're going to hit that right there. We're going to color pick that same shadow and see how the darkness of the eyebrow fits the darkness of that shadow. So we can even pick that and see how they were pretty close to the same anyway. Kind of coming through here, and then I'm going to move down. And now I'm going to get that darker color that we put in, the darker value, and kind of blend it up into these shadows that we already started to make, right? This is why I like using a wet brush, because you can just like very softly and smoothly put that stuff in. And I'm going to color pick and kind of make that round. She has great like dimples. So I want to keep those. I want to keep that sort of shape. So this is actually going to jut out a little bit more. But really where this is going to pop is when we put in the highlights. The highlights are like little spheres on the face. And that's another thing I want to bring up. This is, and I'm actually going to color pick where you did the eyelashes. That is the darkest part. I think this matches this pretty well. The eyelash matches the darkest shadow pretty well. But let me go ahead and put that in and kind of blend these together. Okay. So something that kind of changed my perception of anatomy and especially the face. The skull only has two pieces. There's only two pieces to a skull. There's a lower jaw and the rest of the skull. So what I mean by that is like, instead of thinking about things separately, which because you got your proportions and stuff so correct here, I think you already do this, maybe without even realizing it. The skull is one thing. So you don't necessarily paint a nose and eyes and ears and cheeks and eyebrows. It's nice to call that stuff that based on landmarking. But as far as painting a form, it's all connected. There's one thing, and it's called the face. So whenever we start simplifying these shadow shapes and we start bringing in the form, it all blends into itself. So a great tip, and what we're going to do here, we're going to use very soft, smooth brushes. She has a great skin tone. She is beautiful. She's young. We want to make sure we show that young side. Now, if you're painting somebody who is older and their skin is maybe more weathered, that's where you can get away with using a little more texture, because, you know, they've earned it. They've been in the sun, they work hard, or, you know, whatever. They've gotten into older age. And, you know, I know like me, once I start getting my crow's feet and stuff, like I already lost my hair. But once I start getting the crow's feet and the wrinkles and stuff, man, I earn those. Like paint them in there. But here we're going to keep it nice and smooth. But that's another reason why this one's so tricky. There's no wrinkles. There's no crazy folds. The closest thing we have are her really strong dimples, her really strong smile line that you're going to see. That's really the only landmark. Everything else is smooth. You know, she has great skin. So it's like, what do you look at? What do you see and really hang your hat on? And that's why studying anatomy is important. A lot of times, I know I think this way too, like really, oh, this is monotonous. And why do I need to learn every muscle group name? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying doing it in such a way to where if you saw this and you're like, oh, well, yeah, the lips kind of come around the face. Instead of being kind of that flat shape, we're noticing that these lips up top here are a little bit lighter because they're catching that sunlight. And the same thing on the bottom lip. The bottom lip is protruding out, which means it's going to catch light as well. Remember the rule that anything facing the light gets the light. Okay. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to choose one of your skin tones up here. And I am going to come in and I am going to put in some of these values right here. Just kind of jot them in, not really specific yet. Okay. And then down here, same thing. Once we add the highlights, this is really where this is going to hit pretty well. So we have something like that. And then we see how the cheeks, since they do protrude out right under the cheeks, there's a little bit more shadow. And see, you got the idea here. We just really want to pronounce it a little more and kind of blend it into itself. So I'm actually going to choose the value that you have. And I'm lightly going to start kind of connecting what we have here. And then notice how it's kind of scooping in right here to make that nice, almost like an orb. Let's do that. Kind of see how that looks. Okay. So we're going to do that. And then the same thing over here. You notice how it's a little bit darker because since she has such robust cheeks, it's going to block a little bit of that light. So we're going to come over here. We're going to do that. Okay. So we have this. And then you're going to notice, this is why I love working in value, because it takes everything else out. And all you're looking at is differences between light and dark. So you have this nice highlight right here. And then you have where the dimples are. This is that smile line that kind of comes between where the chin, where the jawline is, and where the dimples are. You see this little line right here. You see that? You have it plotted out exactly where it needs to be. But because this is one value, it makes it look flat. So I'm going to show you something. If we come and we darken this just a little bit, not a ton, but just a little. Just a little. We also darken under the chin. Okay. So I'm going to pick that. And then this one actually comes down here as well. So kind of under that chin line, we're going to kind of blend that in a little bit. Okay. Kind of that triangle shape that we got. And you already have it right here. I can already see the leading line. So let's actually use that exact line that you put. So that's right. So we have that. Now, and once again, it's a low resolution for the image, but also it's kind of flat. Do you notice that little bit of light right here? The little bit of light. This is bounce light. I want to say it's probably bounce light from the shoulder. Since the shoulder is getting a lot of light, skin does kind of reflect, one of those. It does something to light. It absorbs some of it, then it kind of mirrors it out. I think some of that bounce light is hitting right here. So let's bring some of that light in. I'm going to choose this midtone of the cheek and bring that in again. And what that does, that starts bringing a little bit more of that form to the face. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's a little too pronounced. I need to taper it down. So I'm going to choose the color you already had and kind of temper this a little bit more. And because really, we put a lighter color here, this can actually be lighter too because it's still darker than what it's next to. Which is a weird sentence to say, but hopefully you know kind of what I mean. really value is in relation of each other. Does that make sense? Values only make sense in relation to one another. So we have something like that. Then we have that same shape. We have that same sort of deal here. So I am going to kind of darken this shadow a little bit. I see how you have it right here. I think this value, and you may not even realize you did this one, I think this one is correct. Because you can kind of blend in where that hairline goes, kind of bring this up, and then you can even kind of round this out. Because you have to think that hair is blocking the light. If it's coming from up and behind, it's going to block a little bit of that light. So we want to smooth that out a little. And you really want that face to look round, nice, and like, because it's a sphere, it's a big old dome. That's kind of one of the benefits about being bald, is anytime I need to know where light hits a head, I can like look at it and be like, oh, what's my head doing? So we have that here. I'm going to smooth that out. And then as we back up, hopefully it's starting to look a little more, have a little bit more form. Now, a part that is really difficult, a lot of people have a lot of trouble with, it's actually one of my favorite things to work on, is the nose. The reason why noses are difficult, very difficult, people like to draw noses. You can't draw a nose. There is no lines. It seems like there's lines because of the way light hits, and it makes shadows, but you're not drawing the nose, you're drawing everything around the nose. So the way the shadows fall give you the information about the nose. The way the highlight hits gives you information about the nose. You're not making the nose, you're making everything inverse of the nose. I'll show you what I mean. So you have that right idea, that little bit of shadow comes down here, under here. So we're going to hit here, we're going to hit here, and actually we're going to lighten it up a little bit because we see this. I'm going to lighten that up. But now you see the little, almost the little bevels, the little circles on the nostrils, where the nostrils flare. I can't remember the technical term for that, but we're going to see that. And you've done it a little bit here. I would actually pronounce it a little bit more, like so. And then the same thing for this nostril over here. I would pronounce it a little bit more. You can always come in and carve away and do that type of stuff. And then I could bring that up. And then the same thing here. You've done it here. I would say you can smooth this out, even keeping the same value that you have. I'm just going to color pick, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to smooth this out. And then I'm going to bring it out around to the tip of the eye. Because see, you stopped a little early, but that's an easy fix. Because you just bring this out, and then that also transfers over to the top of this eye. And great job on seeing that this spot is darker, because you're totally right. So we're going to kind of blend that in over here. And then I would even argue that this value that you have and this value are kind of the same. They're pretty close. So that means I'm going to color pick the value you already have, come in and really kind of push in that bridge part, just like that. Okay. So we have that. I'm going to smooth this out, get rid of some of that highlight right there. Okay. And then we're going to also value pick here and see this shadow. I will tell you the stuff that really makes a nose and eyes work are going to be these shadows in the eye socket. And then the highlights on the lower eyelid are really the things that give a face your believability. So we're going to do that. We're going to bring this over. We're going to bring this in right here. And then we're going to kind of bring that up as well. And once again, your values are right. Like, it's just about making the shapes as easy as possible. Something like that. And then like with the eyelid, you can kind of extend that down, because if you see here, it kind of extends down and around. And then that's when this turns into like a circle. You know what I mean? So we're just going to do this. We're going to kind of blend this out. And this is just with really a hard round brush, you know. And once again, since this is kind of flat lighting, this gets kind of difficult because everything has to blend in so well. Everything has to blend in really well because there's not a lot of really harsh light. However, let's go ahead. I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to smooth this out. Okay, let me smooth those out. Now, here's where it's going to take this to the next level. So hopefully now you feel like the face has a little bit more form. Where this really just goes for it. Now you're going to lighten things up. You're going to choose your same value because the highlights, like she has very delicate features, they're going to be just a little bit lighter. Not a ton lighter, just a little bit. But you're going to notice some hot spots. So some hot spots based on this lighting are going to be middle, top of the forehead, okay? Top of the cheeks, anything that's a sphere is going to be lit from the same direction. So those two will get the same relative highlight that your forehead will. And the nose. The nose right there is going to get the same thing. But trust me when I say, once we add the little bridge and that little speck to the tip of the nose, and then you get those cheeks in there, the whole thing just works. You know what I mean? And then once you get all of those in, that's when you can really start having fun with your values. So let's first do our cheeks. And remember, we're going to kind of keep stuff smooth. And then you can even go a little lighter because you're going to notice the further it faces the light. So I could just put in the shapes like this first, and then we can go in and blend so you can really see kind of what I'm referring to here. So we have this. We have this. Then we have our nose. And then that comes out like so. And then this kind of comes down like that. And then up here. Okay. It's a little big actually. So let me taper that down. Because you see this little kind of shadow divot right there. You can put the main deal in and then you kind of carve around it. So we have that. Okay, there we go. Now let's go a little bit lighter even. Okay, so we have that. We have that. We have this. And then we have, it looks like that part is a little bit lighter. So something like that. So once again, now it's a little bit more illustrative. Now it's very, very geometric shapes that you have. But really where this starts to work, and it's kind of amazing, let's get even a little bit lighter and let's hit a few of those hot spots. So let's go ahead, one near her eyes, you got it. You got the little makeup right here. So if we got this for the eye, we got this for the eye, right? We're going to use the same thing to hit tip of the nose. Let's do this. Tip of the nose. Kind of the midpoint of that bridge. We have right here. And then we have kind of right there. And then here, we already kind of had that. There we go. So something like that. Now I'm going to get my blender brush. Because these look too much like shapes, just like circles, this is where you're going to go. You're going to get a smudge brush or a blend brush and actually get rid of those defined lines in kind of a quote-unquote painterly way, if that makes sense. Kind of that. And then you can also kind of come over here. Something like that. Then from here, let's blend some of these in because I really like that shape. So that's why I'm cutting away from it with the blender like that. And then let's blend this highlight into here. Okay. Then what's fun is I actually don't blend a whole lot on the nose. I like to keep these fairly fairly pronounced shapes. And then we can actually come in here and blend those in, kind of stretch that out a little bit. And then let me get this over here. Cool. So we have something like that. So now it's getting there. You know what I mean? It's getting there. There's a little bit more. There's also a little bit of highlight right here, but because your values are pretty on point, instead of making that, I'm actually going to just make right under here where the lip meets the chin a little darker. I'm just going to hit here, and then I'm going to hit there. There we go. So something like that, right? And we'll kind of smooth the lip out. And that's another kind of dastardly thing about anatomy. Lips are very smooth. They're actually connected to your chin. Like there's this inside part right here to where you can actually get rid of that line right in this bottom part of your mouth where your lips kind of curve in to the inside of your mouth. You can get rid of those lines. You can actually see it right here. Really small, but notice how those are very kind of blendy. So if I come in here and I can get that. So cool. We have something like that. Now what I'm going to do, just to kind of show the difference, I am going to duplicate your original painting, bring it on top, and change this to color. There you go. So this is basically the way I would get started on making my adjustments. Like I said, your colors are bang on, man. Like you nailed it. So now it's just, you can use this, and I will be providing these PSD files on the on Patreon. So that way everyone can kind of download and take a look. But that's really, I mean, because look at that. You would think, oh, I need to add some red. I need to, do some of that for the cheeks. Look at what it naturally does just when you lighten it. I didn't add any colors. I didn't add anything. These are all your colors, man. And already the face is starting to look a little more structured. So if I were to like that, do you see what I mean? Like now you're starting to get the shapes of the face in there, and it's starting to read. And just by adding the form in there, the lightness is even more pronounced, right? So you can really work and like kind of tweak the details and things like that. So let's say, oh, you do notice now that, okay, that kind of juts out a little, like the nostril thing. So I could make a new layer on top of this and then see that shape right there. I'm just going to color pick here. Do that. Then I'm going to kind of, I need to darken this. So I'm going to grab one of these dark colors right here and like do this outline of the nose. Oh, and then I'm actually going to grab that little white right here and do kind of a nice bright highlight right there. And then a nice little hit right here. So this actually extends more. So I'm going to color pick and really accentuate that. And now you can see how this type of stuff really starts making your image the way that you want it. And I'm going to grab that and kind of smooth that out. And this is just, I'm noticing things and I'm just kind of doing a basic render pass. I'm just keeping with the same exact values and colors that you really started with on a lot of this, but it's just these small tweaks. And then what we can do is we can actually come in with these darks. We can do this. How many are there? There is, okay, so under that nose, okay, so under this side of the nostril, we got one right here, two, 3. Got that one, okay. And then 1, 2, 3, something like that. Then you can even take this and hit a little more white, a little bit more desaturated, and hit some hot spots on the teeth, because teeth are in 3D as well. I mean, those are three-dimensional objects. And then you can slightly get rid of some of the harsh lines right here, right? So kind of do this, and then even bring some of that shadow into the lips, because you have to think the lips are going to be blocking the teeth. That's kind of what a mouth does, right? It shuts over the teeth. So as the lips come in, it's going to start darkening around here, because now the lips are turning on the inside of the mouth and not getting as much light. So you can really emphasize that. But that gets into the more nitty gritty. You don't even really need that. But then as you zoom out, now it's starting to take shape. Okay. So awesome. Overall, I think you did super, super well. Yeah, let me go ahead and save this. Let me go there. And then we'll do a quick, a lot of the same thing for the gesture study is going to be the same. So you actually made it really easy. Got that. So we did portrait Paintover. And then I have Windows 10, and now that it's about time for Windows 11, I'm noticing the saving and stuff does weird things on my, I actually want to save this as a Photoshop file as well. Photoshop document. So, cool. Gotcha. So that's going to save right there. Perfect. So overall, great work. And like you can always go into the nitty gritty of the eyes and kind of notice where the darks and the lights of the eyes are. It's really just taking the time and looking at the values and really analyzing it like inch by inch and kind of seeing. And then I like having the navigator open. That way you can always see the big picture, as it were. So yeah, overall, no, I think you did fantastic on this one. So well done. Now let's move over to this one right here. And it's the same thing. In fact, I would argue this one's even harder. This one's even more difficult. So the first thing I want to do, and this is just a personal preference of mine, the first thing I want to do is get rid of any white on the canvas. Because anytime white is on a canvas, it throws off my value sense. Because now I'm comparing everything to pure white. So I make everything a little too light. Same reason I would get rid of everything that's completely black, like in a background, because it's going to throw off my sense of shadow. If it's not as dark as the darkest thing, then, you know, and then if you have pure black or pure white, it's really going to throw off your values. So what I'm going to do first, just to get this to kind of a good fighting shape, because I love the colors you picked. Once again, I think that your shapes are great. You have an awesome sense of like where items are and kind of getting that nice interpretation onto a canvas, I think is wonderful. I think you've done great work with that. And I even really love some of these brush strokes. I can see them. I'm a big fan of big, thick impasto brush strokes. So I love seeing it. Really, all we're going to do is refine it and make sure that they match what our values are. But first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to extend all of these colors out. That way we have a canvas that has no white on it, so it can't play our optical illusion on us. All right, so let me duplicate this. Boom, duplicate layer, bam. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to color pick this purple. Same thing here. Get rid of all this. You can keep some of it to where it's a little lighter or darker. So like that part doesn't matter as much. But I just think keeping in line, let's go ahead and kind of make that. Actually, let me bring it over. And then that. Okay. See how it's kind of blending in that stuff. Let me get the full-on Photoshop brush. That way I can do a harsh brush, kind of come in here. Cool. And then let me grab that color. Yeah, there we go. There it is. Got that. And then here, let's just go ahead, since it's stuff outside, let's just go ahead and do this. Then we can like do that. Just to bring that out, okay? So yeah, so we get it to where our canvas now has midtones on it, right? And this is gonna allow us to see our values better. So once again, I'm gonna do my new thing. I'm gonna do a color overlay layer, grab a paint bucket, grab complete black, put it on there. So I think that your values are actually pretty close here. There's not a huge range. There's not a huge like dynamic range. So this is pretty accurate. So first thing I'll talk about is the hair. Notice that while the hair does get some light at the kind of front angle, it looks like this may be like not overcast light because they're inside, but I wonder if they had a diffuse box. Like this is a professional photograph. They had a diffuse box, which is whenever, you know, the big deal they have whenever you go to like a pro photographer session, they have this big light bulb, but it's surrounded by a big box or a big umbrella looking thing. What that does is that mimics diffuse light. So instead of a really harsh light hitting you like a spotlight with like cast shadows and stuff, this makes it look very, not flat, but it does flatten out some stuff, which is what we saw in the portrait. This just makes everything very soft. And once again, when you're working with value or trying to get likeness, softness, if you're not used to working with it, can be really misleading. It can be really hard to do. But like I said, I think you nailed looking at your values here. There's slight tweaks to make, but like overall, you got the sense of it, you know? I would argue that this is even more flat than the portrait was as far as the reference photo. So it's really just that anatomy and kind of understanding that. But let's go back to the hair. Because you have that diffuse light hitting it, it's not quite as light as you have it here. Do you notice how dark these patches are? In fact, I would argue some of these patches are the darkest part of the whole picture. So I'm going to grab your darkest dark. I'm going to grab that wet brush. I'm going to make it a little smaller. And I'm just going to kind of sketch in here. I'm going to keep some of these lights in there. But I'm going to kind of sketch this, okay? And see, I'm going to kind of come up here in this like little zigzaggy right here. The nice thing about hair is one big piece. You don't have to draw individual hairs or paint individual hairs. You can, which we actually will do in a second with those, kind of those outliers. But if you already look at this, you already now kind of hit a nice reset button on your values. Do you know what I mean? So you can even go a little bit lighter than this. So if I grab this and go a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller, and then sort of start edging in a little more of those little sketchy details, I can come over here and kind of do the same thing like this. Make my brush a little bigger, kind of do the same thing with the shapes. Then I'll go a little bit lighter and do the same thing again. You see some of the hot spots here as far as where the light's hitting. I could probably even go a little lighter, in fact. Yeah, let's do that so we can really see it. Yeah, there you go. So we have something like this. Then you have, kind of comes over the ear here. And then there's some down here. So you already have a few of them. So like I said, your eyes are great. I mean, you're seeing some awesome stuff. So there you go. And then I'm going to get the really hard brush. I'm going to grab this, and then we can go ahead and on the kind of these outlying hairs near the bottom, once the hair frays a little bit, we can actually mimic some of those shapes. So you want to just do big shapes like that, something like this. And what that's going to do is it's going to give the perception that you spent a ton of time on this hair. It's going to, oh man, look, he painted every single, not really, like just how you have it here, you get your big shapes in there. And then you can just sort of around the edges, go and fray it just a little bit. I do this on every one of my deals. I fray it just a little. I keep the same shapes. I don't really, excuse me, I don't really mess with too much, but I do just sort of come in and add a little something. And then, you know, if I need to come back in and let's say I need to straighten some of my edges or something, or I just don't like the way it looks a lot, I can come in and kind of refine these edges only at the very end, of the very ends of the shape. You know what I mean? So now you're back to business. And because of the hair, you notice how it's doing kind of that etchy looking stuff. And then this seems like kind of a single brush going across it. This is where you can come in with your shapes and really just vary your brush look and the direction, and also what direction, the opacity, the pressure, all that stuff. And just kind of come in and you're going to etch some of this, right? And then whenever you come back out, it really has that feel of very layered hair, even if it's not. But once you back out, once you look at it from a distance, there you go. So we have that. I also want to commend you on the shape of the face. This is an astronomically difficult, like, I have a super hard time doing this, to where you get a little bit of the eye, a little bit of the side of the nose, a little bit of the bottom lip, but keeping it in perspective to make it look correct instead of some weird like growth on the side of a face. You did outstanding on that. And I think really what it was is you see this rim light. You see that rim light that you got? You nailed it, right? So you nailed that rim light. You brought it on over here. You also did the outline of the eye. So you're seeing it. You're seeing that value perfect, you know. But then I would argue that the other parts of the face don't get quite the same, quite that same care. So what I mean by that, and not that you did anything wrong or bad, because I think this looks outstanding. I would say the smoothness of the shadow shape coming into the face, we can actually just kind of blur that in. The darkness of the upper lip, that little bit, is actually critical, because this is going to inform us of shape. You kind of have it here, but it looks like either it was more of an accident or it was just something you didn't get back to. But once we add that, because you have to look at that lightness right here and look at the dark right there. See how there's a stark contrast? The contrast isn't quite as stark here. But once we add that in, you're going to notice that the whole thing kind of comes together. So let's do the neck first. Okay. We're going to do the neck first. I'm going to grab the same value that you have. Actually, I'm going to grab this middle value, the one between the darkest and then this value right here. And then I'm going to come in. Oh, let me get the wet brush. There you go. I'm going to come in. I'm going to mimic that shape. Okay. And then what I am going to do, I'm going to grab the darkest dark. Yeah. I'm going to come in and I'm going to kind of draw that in as well. And actually, I can see maybe why you didn't want to do the earring, because it's a little superfluous, but it does make it a little trickier to see the true shadow, because this is now casting something on the face. You see what I'm saying? You see like this shadow line right here that's connected to this ear shadow line? So it's like, this is where that shadow line is. You see what I mean? Right there. So you can go without it. So let's do it without it. Let's say we want to make that change. We want to make it to where she's not wearing an earring. Great. So we're just going to still study that shape of this right here. I went a little overboard, so I'm going to color pick and kind of move that back in like so. Bring this up. And the nice thing about cast shadows, that's actually out a little far. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this in. There we go. Cast shadows reinforce and restate the shape of the object that it's the shadow of. So you'll notice this turn right here on the ear. We're mimicking that turn on the shadow. So that is going to further influence people's mental library. And it's going to look right. Oh, that looks right. Because those two shapes, it's a drop shadow, essentially. So they're going to mimic each other. And then let's see what we're, oh yeah, so we were doing the neck. So yeah, I would say the neck is looking good here. Let's go and edge this out. And then I'm going to soften this. This is more of that straight line, which you have right here. But since we've changed around the values a little bit, we just want to make sure that nothing catches our eye that shouldn't catch our eye. Does that make sense? So if I come right here, so yeah, there we're blending in our values, you know, which is kind of what we want to do. You got that, and we're gonna bring this up. I'm gonna burn this in, and then I'm actually gonna grab the blender, bring this down. We're gonna blend these together. Very cool. Very good. Okay. And yeah, you can even do lost shadows, like lost edges right here. So you get something like this. Okay. So we're going to come over. I like that you added this highlight. I think it's slightly over a little bit. Okay. So because that part of the ear, you see how it's kind of folding back. Now it doesn't quite have that room to fold back. So I'm just going to do this, paint this right here. Then I'm going to grab that, lighten it up a little bit more, and just kind of move that up. You can also do a free selection tool and grab that way. So we're going to grab this, and with the ears, I'm just going to mimic these shapes. I think you've done a really good job with that, of mimicking the shape. Ears are just weird. They're just bizarre. And then there's kind of that lost edge here. So I'm going to kind of blend between these, kind of lose that edge. And then same thing here. It's a little close. So I'm going to grab, I'm going to paint over. There we go. Because we want a little bit more room between where this ear is right here. And then going to grab that. We're going to smooth this out. And then, what is the earlobe? We're going to kind of mirror that as well. And now you're going to see, once you're looking at values, you're going to see like this little shadow right here, but also leads to a little highlight where this is being caught, you know, and then that kind of comes up here. Same thing here for that side of the ear. This shadow is a little bit more pronounced than I thought. So you're just mimicking the shapes that you see with your values. And then, of course, since we have this right here, we're also going to have the highlight right here because that part of the ear catches the light as well. Okay. And then as we back up, it's going to read a little bit. My shape's slightly off, I think, because I actually need to bring this up. And it's more of that angle right there. So never be afraid to just come in and just start moving stuff. Just move it and bump it and see what it looks like. And I can tell you that now the most enjoyable part of my paintings is this. It's like, well, how does it look if I change it like that? Well, how does it look if I change it like that? And I will spend a majority of my time doing that. Really just locking in my values, painting, kind of getting good changes on the planes and working that way. Okay. So we kind of spent forever right here, but that's fine. Hopefully you're seeing that really all I'm caring about is the value. That's it. So that brings us, and like we have the neck right here, and that's great. I think that line right there, we can even accentuate it a little bit. So it does get pretty dark, but it only gets dark near the middle of that line. So we can extend this line all the way up to the hair. And then this darker part, we can actually get right here because of the skin right there. And then I want to lighten this. That looks a little too vibrant for me. So if we do that, even though it's really sharp on here, on the actual picture, you don't need to make it that sharp in your painting. Just as long as you're inferring the detail, people's minds are going to fill in the rest. That's what's nice about working in an observational kind of figurative style. It's not your job to mimic reality perfectly. It's your job to make an impression of reality. So impressionism, that's where the term comes from. You're not giving them exactly what they need to see. You're giving them what's going to put them in the mood for them to solve the rest of the problem themselves. And that's why I would argue people like Andrew Zorn and John Singer Sargent, whenever they make their paintings and they do that, people are like, wow, they're just so captivating. They're just so, I love to invest time and really look at it. It's because they don't give you all the answers. They leave some of that stuff up to your imagination. And a perfect example is the hair. The hair right here, that's not hair. You zoom in, what is this? What is that? But then in context, oh, I see what it is. That's the impression of somebody's hair. So we're going to do that same thing on the back here, because that's really the only other thing I wanted to look at, because the back does deal with anatomy. So whenever some of the values might be off, or if the shapes are slightly angled differently, it's going to make the muscles not appear functional. And she's in a, kind of that kind of catwalk pose, right? She's, tilting her head. She's, showing off. You want to have that personality accentuated. So we're going to look at that and we're going to break this down. I think you've done a great job so far breaking these shapes down. Like this shadow, critical. And I think you nailed it. I'm just going to slightly get my wet brush and kind of mix the two right here, because this is one shape. And as we know, a cylinder is going to have a smooth transition. Now it can be a harsh transition, but it's still going to be smooth. You don't want your transitions to be super, super sharp unless it's a drop shadow or like the edge of something, like the edge of a table or edge of a sphere, listen to me. Well, yeah, I guess so. The edge of a sphere where it hits a table, like the plane differences. So that's what we're going to do. I'm also going to kind of smooth out a little bit of this, because anything that's pulling away the reality of the smoothness of the skin, I want to get rid of. So you see how the light still comes up here? I want to bring that out because that part of the shoulder is still getting the light. You see what I mean? And then I can come over here, get that a little darker right there. And then you got that highlight pretty close, man. That's almost right on the money. So I'm just going to color pick there. And then I can see you had the idea to make that darker, but just make it a little darker, just a little darker. You can grab one of your shadows right here and then really kind of bring that in, because that shoulder blade is going to have that. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to lighten other stuff around it. So we're going to have this, because there's a lot of light hitting here. There's a lot of light, and I'm following like these shapes right here. And then that's a little pronounced up here. I see where you did that highlight. And then here, I'm actually going to lighten this a little more. This is what I mean. With doing young anatomy and like really nice skin and stuff like that, it just takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of render time to really come in and make sure that you're not really see that you're not really making it look too harsh or too and see that might even be a little too dark, so I'm going to grab that and lightly brush over. I'll do it again, lightly brush over, so it's a little darker but not much, right? Bring that out. So yeah, it's just the render game at that point. And then we can also get the blender here in a moment. But you see how that kind of feeds in, and even though this is a shadow, it's not near as dark as that shadow. I think you did that perfectly. And then you have that. But like I said, this is also a difficult reference photo. This is a hard one. You just went to expert level, man. Like this is a great way to study. And then like this line right here looks good. It's a little long, so we'll get rid of some of it. And then we'll kind of reshape that to make that triangle shape. Does that make sense? And then whenever we bring this over and kind of bring this up, that's where we can really kind of get those nice shapes right there. And then we're going to smooth this out. That's good. That's your darkest part of that. And then right here, and see there's just the two lines. So I'm going to get rid of this third line, but then I'm going to grab that highlight and once again bring this in. So that's what we're really looking at. You know what I mean? Just whenever you're dealing with anatomy, that's why painting people is so difficult. This is very exact. I say very exact. I mean more of a, people are going to tell. Like if you're doing a portrait of somebody, they're going to tell if it doesn't look like them. Does that make sense? Like it's more, it's definitely, it's less forgiving. So if you're doing trees and landscapes and stuff, which is probably why I'm on a big landscape kick lately, they feel a little bit more free, a little bit more energetic, because at least to me, it doesn't feel like you're so bogged down by the rules. But this, what you have here is a genius study. It really is. Because like, I can like, now I'm just talking and painting. You know what I mean? I like this type of stuff. I really enjoy going in and kind of solving the puzzle. And yeah, that's a great one. You got that dark right there. I'm just going to bring that a little bit, then bring that highlight and really accentuate that. Perfect. And then we got that there. Got it. I'm going to bring this down. Same thing here. I'm going to bring this over, kind of blend that through. Then I'm going to bring that kind of streak of light up and then connect it here. Same thing I kind of did over here. And then I'm going to bring in a little bit lighter because once again, it's kind of a hot spot. Hotspot. Yeah, you already had that hotspot down perfect there. Hotspot, a little bit of a hotspot, a little bit of a hotspot right here. Coming down on the arch of the back. That's actually a little too bright. So I'm gonna color pick and kind of smudge and that type of thing. And then because you have the lighter, you have a little bit darker right next to it. So I'm gonna color pick. Something like that, because that's going to be your, is that the lats, I guess? Yeah, lats come down here, right? Make that nice Christmas tree back. And then here, and you see here, this is a really kind of a soft gradation. And you can even like lose that edge a little bit. I would darken this just a little because this part of the arm is facing on the inside, kind of away from the light. In fact, I would probably lighten this just a little bit. Just a little. So you got that. Just a little. And then just a little. There you go. Make sure those values are really on point, and then yeah, you can keep that super, super dark. But once again, it looks like there's a pretty solid line here, but it's actually blended fairly well. So let's grab a blender. Let's come up here and lightly kind of dust over, and then lightly pull in this, lightly pull in this, and lightly pull in that. Yeah, these skin deals are just so subtle. It makes it really difficult. And then if we go in and we kind of just sort of blend in these variations, you know what I mean? We're starting to get to where it feels like it has a little bit more weight to it, a little bit more of that form. But overall, I mean, your stuff was super on point. You know what I mean? Like, so like I said, kudos to you, man, for this is hard. Like, this is just a difficult one for sure. And then as we get to the lower back, we can actually blur this out a little more. Because that's not our main focal point. Do something like this. And then, yeah, so really you can see where the skin stuff is happening is all in the blending. It's all in the blender stuff. So feel free to put in your values, then come in with a blender and really hit these to make them pop, right? And what's really cool, if you wanted to really go down that painterly route, come over here to where you can see on the edges, there's a lot of like very close values, you know? And then what you can do is use a blender or use a smudge brush and get rid of the harsh lines. So like this, get rid of that one. You can, I kind of already did it here, how you can just kind of get rid of that, right? You can get rid of, see, those are pretty far apart though. Anything that's really close, you can go in and just kind of blend and melt away. Yeah, man, look at that. And then to even prove the point, so we did the value pass. We have something right here, okay? I am going to do this. We get that. Let me duplicate this layer, move it on top, and then we're going to change this to color. Bam. So now we have something that has a little bit more form. Now, of course, I can still come in and kind of tweak these shapes and things like that, but once again, we didn't touch color. You had the colors like on there. So it's really about accentuating these shapes and really kind of getting in there and smoothing out some stuff and kind of refining the shadow shapes, the light shapes, and kind of where they are in relation to your other lines outlining the body. But overall, man, outstanding work. Like I said, super difficult. You'll notice I didn't even really touch that mouth thing. I know I made that point earlier. Let me go ahead and change that. Let me go here, go back to my value layer. Got that. Oh, don't need airbrush. I need Photoshop wet, sure. We're gonna add that. That, yeah, everything else looks great. We're gonna add the nostril. We can add this nostril right up here, and then we change that, and then we will grab that white that you got. Cool. Got that. Something like that. Boom. Done. Done and done, man. Outstanding job on this. Yeah, super difficult pose, super difficult to get good skin tone. Super difficult to get good values with that type of lighting. Super difficult way that you had on the face. So like, this is a great way to study because this is the most complex you're probably going to get. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather paint a dragon than paint somebody in this pose. Because with the dragon, you can get away with stuff that no one really knows what a dragon looks like. But people know what people look like. And that's really, really difficult. So hopefully that kind of answered the question about the flatness and appearing flat. Let me come over here. But a big thank you to Cyber. Amazing art, man. Just incredible. Even your art growth since being in the Discord has been tremendous. So everyone give a big round of applause to Cyber. Let him know in the comments how much you appreciate his work. And hey, it's not easy to put your art in front of people to get critiqued. That's not an easy thing to do. So a big thank you to him for allowing us to be able to go and do some art like that. So now let's move over to another patron, the lovely Dawn, and hers is really going to blow you away. I don't even know if I have a lot to say about it, but I mean, I do have a lot to say about it, but not in a critique way. So let's take a look at what Dawn has to offer us for this Patreon Paintover. All right, so round number 2. We are going to look at Dawn's image. And yeah, this is looks great. I mean, come on now. Are you sure you want me to teach you how to paint, not the other way around? Or so we looked at Cyber's, so let's look at Dawn's real quick. Hope I'm not too late. I just finished this in Rebel 4. I'm just starting on my digital art journey. Birds are mainly my focus, with landscapes being secondary. I would love to eventually have some weird shit in with the bird compositions, something like post-apocalyptic. So this is interesting because I think Dawn is asking, we'll do just kind of a general critique, but really what Dawn is doing is something that's extraordinarily difficult, what her goal is. And it's actually something that my goal is going into 2022. Taking observational art and putting it in an imaginative setting. Which is, you know, we talk about like my personal goals as an artist is to work for like Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons. That's the nature of that career. Is you're taking something believable, such as a picture or a person, or you're looking at reference, and you're using that reference and putting it into such a way that you're inventing something that literally does not exist. And that's what Dawn is talking about here. So it's funny, right next to me, let me go over to the webcam. I have, I have my copy of Imaginative Realism, How to Paint What Doesn't Exist by James Gurney. And he signed it, not to brag or anything, but so thank you for that, James. But that book deals with this. How do you take, if you're a good observational artist, which Dawn clearly is, clearly, I mean, wait till you see the reference photo. Like, we have that in the reference photo. Come on, man. Like, what? That's great. Like, there's really not a lot to say. I'm going to do some slight tweaks, and once again, you guessed it, it has to do with value. But if the intent is to make a painting of a bird that's engaging, mission accomplished. You know what I mean? Like, what is there to really critique here? Like, nothing, which is good, but also could be kind of frustrating. If you're at a level like a Cybernetic or like Dawn or like Mao Mao, who we're going to see momentarily, you're at this level to where, yeah, you can practice stuff like perspective and fundamentals and color and blah, blah, blah. But everybody can. Everybody can improve on fundamentals. That's just how it works. So what happens if you want to improve on stuff that's your imagination? And that's a really interesting question. Seriously, that's something I'm going to study and really focus on in 2022. I think we're going to get into some artsy-fartsy territory here. I think it's about emotion. I think it's about trying to figure out technique ways to put in your painting the way that you feel about the painting. Okay. What do I mean by that? So what I love about this, Dawn used Rebel, and I can obviously tell because I love the texture of the paper, and that's totally a Rebel paper for sure. And then the paint strokes, the way the paint strokes work, and then you get beautiful blends. Like look at this stuff like this. Oh, this makes me so happy. Like just look, you know what I mean? Because excuse me, whenever you zoom out, it's a beautiful blend. But you look up close, and it looks like a straight brush mark. But I think there's more emotion in this than in like a perfectly, photorealistic. I love seeing brushwork. I love it because I can study it. But also, it feels to me, I don't know if you all are like this, it feels to me like you're in the mind of the artist. Why did they make this choice? Why did they do that? Oh, I see what they did with the tree branch. Like, okay, we can see the way she did her branches here. You can see the brushstroke decision making. And I think there's something super valuable about that because it lets you into the mind of the artist. Like, oh, look at that stuff. Like this type of stuff. I love it, man. Like this, if using the impasto of the brush to make the bark of the tree, because the inherent shadows of the brushstroke make the shadows of the tree branch. It's genius. You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff is so cool and so much fun to look at. So really what I would do is now I would accentuate. So what does that mean? Let's go ahead. Let's do the same thing. Let me go ahead and I'm going to duplicate the layer. I am going to make my new layer, do the old, where's my paint bucket? There it is. Do the value, change this to color, bam. Okay, so we have that. I have the photo reference up here as well. I'm going to do the same thing on the photo ref. Let me change that. Boom, color. So now another thing that I like to do, let me actually go ahead, hit that. Let me get it to where the birds are kind of in the same place. There we go. Whenever I change back and forth. And this is a great way to study value. So if you look at here and you just kind of keep your eye on one location, like I'm looking right now at the kind of the feathers of the bird, and you go here to here, here to here, here to here. It's like doing the eye exam, like what looks better, A or B, and you just keep doing that over and over. That's super close. That's super close. That's unbelievable. So really, you have a number of things. The only thing I could think of from like an observational standpoint is not really with the bird, it's with the tree. So if you notice, do you see how dark some of these shadows get right here? And then you notice on the reference, it's not quite that dark. It's not a big deal. It's really not. The only reason I would say it would be worth to go in and paint a little bit lighter on that is it's going to draw more focus onto the bird. And I'm going to actually prove that right now. So let me grab this. So I got this. Let me get that. And then I am going to just kind of nullify the darkest darks. I hate getting rid of some of these brush strokes, so I hate it. So I apologize, Dawn. So I'm going to get rid of... Oh, my son just woke up. His mama's got him, though. I'm going to come in and kind of accentuate, get rid of some of the darkest darks right here. And same thing over here. We can keep some of them. I mean, not a huge deal, but I would just get rid of some of the darkest darks because we really want the attention to be on the bird. So you want your bird, whatever your focal point is, you want it to have the darkest darks and the lightest lights, both, preferably right next to each other. which I think you actually have if we look at how dark and how light right up here where the detail is on the bird, which is super smart, genius way to do it. But let's go ahead and even, okay, let's kind of switch back and forth again. So let me get, where's the bird? Like right there, something like that. So if we look back and forth between the tree branches, it's still even darker than what it is on the reference. So we can still lighten this up even more if we wanted to. So let's do that. Let's go ahead. Let's grab that. Let me go ahead, lighten that value. And then kind of come in here. And I got that. Get some of these a little bit, just a little bit. And really, even if you just add, you can keep some of these darks the way they are. Even if you just add a few more transition values to where it's not such a drastic change between light and dark, it's going to blend in. A great way to think about this. The human eye really focuses on one thing at a time. So for instance, if you open up a book, if you have a book near you, focus on one word. And then without moving your eyeball, see how many words around it you can clearly read. 1, 2, maybe 3, without moving your eyeball at all. Then everything else washes away. Completely washes away. It's blurry, it's a mess. You can't tell, you can tell it's words just because of the context clues of the shapes and the values around it, but you don't know what the words say. So the words themselves aren't important, but the context of you reading the book is. Does that make sense? So that's what we're doing here. We are making it to where the bird is going to be our... So, side note, my son's asleep, but he's making like his noises. He's doing active sleep, so he's like babbling, but he's super loud. So if he may not even come up on the mic, but I just wanted to let you know. But yeah, he's asleep, so that's hilarious. So basically, my point is, we want our focal point to be the bird. If the bird is the interest, we want the bird to be the focal point. And I think the values and the contrast and the brushwork already do that splendidly. Another great thing, and this is a tip that I definitely preach by, I think Dawn did this on her own. I don't know if she listened to any of my other stuff or whatever, because I don't want to take credit for someone else being good at art at all. She blended out, she really diffused and soft brushed the background, which is genius. Because what that does is I do that technique all the time, because it acts as a depth of field effect. It acts as like you actually have your field of view locked in on your focal point. It's kind of a cheat, like an art hack, but it's the same thing that what you'll see me do sometimes is I keep details around the focal point. And as I get further away, the brushwork gets more impressionistic. It gets more emotional instead of very logical and pinpoint accurate. And I think that is mimicked really well here too. You can even accentuate that even more by let's get another brush. Instead of using these, let me get the Howley brush. Let me get the blender for the Howley brush. This is more of a oily, pastel-y brush. If we want to just come in, and once again, I kind of feel bad for having, actually, let me do Painterly Wets. I feel bad for messing up her great strong brushwork. But if we want to kind of blend this stuff out a little bit, make it a little bit more impressionistic. And I'm not working in Rebel right now, so it's going to get rid of some of that stuff, some of the nice paper texture. So as we're getting further out, this is going to get a little sloppier and a little more painterly. Hopefully what this does is this starts to mimic, once again, that kind of depth of field. And you'll notice I'm not even really looking at the preference right now. I'm just kind of coming in and blending and, and this is a personal preference. This is just something, but I know she already accentuated with the bokeh'd out background. This is another really cool way you can have a lot of fun, learn about your brushes, and then get a nice painterly feel without really doing a lot of extra legwork. You can actually just make it a little messier as you get more towards the corners. And what that does is, that basically mimics, once again, that depth of field. So you're basically vignetting around your focal point, and then as you get closer to your focal point, it gets it gets sharper. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. So something like this. I mean, look at that. The beak looks amazing. Yeah. I mean, you got it. There's not much to critique here. The only thing I would say, if you really want to get it like pinpoint accurate, you could come in with a sharp brush. And I know with Rebelle, this is actually kind of tricky. Rebelle is great at the painterly look, but it's kind of more difficult with the really sharp, exact design based stuff, except if you use the lasso tool. So I actually do have my the subview up with this in here. So I'm going to bring this over. I'm going to go over to the painting side. I'm going to render the eye a little bit, just a little bit, because I'm interested to see what that does to bring in the viewer. And once again, we are just working on values. So I'm just going to color pick what you already have. And really, that shape is pretty much perfect already. I'm going to come here. I do notice the highlight is actually a little bit smaller of a dot. And once again, this is just personal preference for me. I kind of do this, and then I'm going to get this, kind of come in, make that a little bit right here. And then kind of come around the edge and smooth these out a little. Nothing too big. Get that nice shape. And then I'm going to actually accentuate a few of these smaller shapes right here. I don't know what that's called. Is that basically just the eye cavity for the bird? It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just noticing that there's ridges, so I'm just going to paint ridges. I don't care really. I know with the teeth for the portrait earlier, we counted the lines and all that stuff. That is not really the important thing. It's just sort of eyeballing, pun intended, I guess, where some of this stuff is. So let's just say we have that, okay? Yeah, let's do that, and then let's come over here, make that a little circle again. Cool, got that, bring that up, kind of outline it a little more. So you see what I mean? It's just slightly rendered, not a lot of change. And we actually just use the deal. And then as you zoom out, I mean, that maybe didn't even make all that much of a difference. In fact, I mean, might prefer that bigger highlight that Dawn already had. So it's just, you know what I mean? Now we're getting to the subjective part of art. I think all art is subjective, of course, but there's expectations, I guess. And as an artist, if you set what your expectation is, you're going to get to your end goal more pleasantly, not necessarily faster, not necessarily with less stress, but you're going to get there more pleasantly. You're going to be able to discover stuff as you work. So I don't have any real critiques on the shape of the bird or shape of the bird, the way the light is hitting it. I love the brushwork on it. Just, it feels right. You look at it and you're like, that's the bird. You got it. That is a bird. So now, how would we add something to this? From imagination. This is where we're going to cross our fingers, take a drink of our confidence juice right here. And we're going to add something. But we need to make it work. We need to make it fit, okay? because this ties into Dawn's request or her goal of getting into more imaginative stuff, using her kind of expertise on doing the observational stuff and developing more imaginative storytelling within that. So there's limitless ways we can go here. I mean, there's so many different things we can do here. We can add foliage. We can add some like little moss or something here. We can add I'm trying to think of something that wouldn't need a lot of reference and that we could do quickly. Let's say we wanted to further emphasize the bird by making more of these trees in the background. So the way that Dawn already has the background set up, and let's go over and let's go to duplicate this layer. Or actually, oh, that's already a duplicate. Or no, let me do that. Let me go ahead and duplicate it just to make sure that I don't mess up anything. We got this, and then we go to color, boom, and see what I mean? The so if we do that, let me go over here. Let me move these. Boop. Oh wait, I don't want to do that. Hold on. Oh, that's right. You can't put the. Never mind. Let me do this. Boom. 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 Okay. So the before and after. Let me close the sub view. Before and after. This is after. This is before. That nothing. You know what I mean? Like really hardly anything changed, and like you can even see this. Yeah, it did get rid of that canvas texture, but you can see the slight, just very subtle vignetting to really draw that bird more into focus. Now you might even want to keep some of these darkers next to the bird because it leads the eye into the bird. So let's take that motif. Let's take that motif of leading the eye into the bird. And let's take it with, let's do wet brush. Actually, let's do concept wet. Okay, so concept art. So we're going to keep the same colors we already have. Okay, we're not going to change anything. We're not going to change values. We're not going to change this stuff. So since we already have a really bokeh'd out background, really blurry background, we're going to do a middle ground thing. We're going to treat that as the pure background. We're going to treat the bird and this branch right up here as the foreground. Now it's up to us to make the midground. So what we can do with the midground, since we already established that this tree has branches sticking out and going all these different directions, we're going to do that as well with a slightly blurrier set of softer, but not too soft, tree branches to kind of bring everybody's eye to the bird. So let's do that. We're going to hit this value and we're going to lighten it and desaturate it just a little bit. Okay. And then I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to start drawing branches. Okay. So if I kind of come in here, and this might even be too, oh no, we can do that. It's fine. I was about to say these might be too clean of a look. But see what I mean? What we're going to actually try to do here is integrate some of this and some of these designs into where our bird is. So what I'm doing is I'm making a frame for our bird. Does that make sense? Like I'm going to come in and I'm just going to add a little bit of something. And I'm going to add these little, since we have really good visual information that Don already provided for us and the reference provided for us, I'm going to integrate that stuff in here as well, because those repetitious shapes are going to help build the reality of what we're doing. So, and once again, I'm going to put those same shapes similar to where they're at here. And then that goes down here. So, and like, there's no reference for this. Do you know what I mean? And now we want these to get the light as well. So I'm going to pick that light value. And we're going to light it the same way that this is lit. But you see how it's looser? It's more loose. It's not as exacting. You know what I mean? So, and once again, this is personal preference stuff, but working from imagination is fun because what you can do is use the rules that you already have established from the piece. Let me bring that up a little bit less value. So that's darker. We're going to do this. And you can make this foliage, you can make these additional trees as dark or as dense or as light as you want. But I'm just doing this to add a little bit of visual noise to further emphasize the bird. These are more light shapes. These are shapes that you can easily edit out. You can easily manipulate. You're not really doing anything too crazy. You know what I mean? And then what you can also do, if they ever get too overbearing, you can always select your sky color. I'm going to go to the Photoshop, go to wet right here. Get your sky color and lightly opacity over it to further pull that back towards the sky again. You know what I mean? If you don't want it to be as overbearing or whatever, you can do this and see how you have all these like nice blurred edges, but they still retain a shape, but it's around the bird. It further emphasizes the clarity of the bird. So you're really doing some stuff. These are muted colors while these colors are bright. In fact, if we wanted to do a slight adjustment, all I would say is around the focal point, that's where you can have a field day. And you kind of already have. Like, look at these beautiful shifts of hues. You have that slightly more yellow, slightly desaturated orange. You have the brown. You have those. You can really play with that. And you can kind of go a little hog wild on stuff that maybe might not even be there. So like, yeah, look at some of those. Those are beautiful. The same thing. Yeah, you got them right here. So you could even integrate. And what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to get the, which one do I want? Let's do a holly. Let's do mix. No, let's do flow. Yeah, that one's going to be a little more painterly. So we have this bright color. Now, this is just me experimenting. It doesn't have to happen. It's not like this is part of the critique. This is just me trying something out. I like, see where that light hits? And see, you already have that light right there. What if we just change that color a little bit? I think this value's a little dark. Yeah, let me lighten that value and kind of up the saturation a little. So we have something like that. Kind of blend that in. You have some of these, you have some of that. Let's see, and kind of where it gets sort of that yellowy color right there as well. Let's color select that. Let's kind of hit those edges a little. And then, see, this is the type of stuff, I could do this all day, man. That's beautiful. I mean, Dawn nailed it in regards to picking the right stuff. Ooh, this is cool. So here's a quick thing. Do you see on the picture how these are all little lines? You see that? Kind of that nice optical illusion? That is a perfect reason to use a rake brush. A rake brush, whether it's a smudge tool or whatever, let's do that. Let's go to Mix Rake and check this out. If we want to mimic this look, we can come in. I'm going to make that way smaller because good God. And see, she already did a great job with it here. Like if we go like this. Oh, man. Oh, dude. Oh, let's get this party started, man. Look at that. You got that. You just color pick. And you are off to the freaking races, man. Oh my gosh. I could do this all day. Because that is where it's just that slight variety of brush shape. You know what I mean? Your texture is now doing the work for you. And you notice I'm only sticking around the focal point whenever I'm doing this. Oh, dude. Oh, my God. Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. So, and you see that? Now you kind of look and you see these subtle little variations. She already has some amazing brushwork right here, and this just accentuates it. You know what I mean? So hopefully this gives you some ideas. Now I want to do more of this because I like the way that looks. So I'm going to do more. And this is me working with value and color and brush all at the same time. And then you can even do that on the edges here. So hopefully this is giving you some ideas. You know what I mean? Because now you're getting those nice subtle gradations and shifts. Very cool. God, see, I love our Patreon because everyone's so talented that it makes my job real easy. I just get to have fun, be like, oh, what if we tried this? What if we did that? What if, ooh, you know? But Dawn, stunning image. Stunning image. Hopefully there's a few ideas here. So that is kind of the tricky thing, like I said before, is making it, you know, going into imagination is so subjective. But I think it's important. In fact, I know it's important because I feel like that's an Achilles heel of mine. I can look at a reference and I can manipulate it a little bit to make it look like something else. But to really have that sense of being confident in your imagination skills, it just takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of dedicated time. And it's something I'm very excited about for next year, and especially just for all of us on the Patreon and stretching out and becoming better artists. But it's daunting. It's scary. And I know it's scary because I'm there. I'm right there with you. But you just jumping on the digital art bandwagon, I think you've done design stuff. Is that right? You can tell. You can tell this is not your first rodeo because, I mean, the amount of effort you already put in and the amount of understanding you have in proportions and shapes and color. I mean, I don't got nothing to tell you. You know what I mean? So it's just a pleasure to be able to work on another artist's art. Same with Cybers. You know, you guys are getting shapes down. Shapes took me forever. You guys are nailing it. Amazing. But a huge round of applause and thank you to Dawn for the amazing bird and the landscape, kind of the landscape. Talking about getting into landscapes. Just amazing work. So well done. And last but certainly not least, we are now going to take a look at Emmanuel's art, also known as Mao Mao, or Meow Meow, Mao Mao. I think it's Mao Mao. Mao Mao. We're going to take a look at Mao Mao's art, and we're going to dissect it. This one's going to be, if we've had some structure now we're getting into the nitty gritty now. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's take a look. All right, so now here we are on the third artist, our fourth painting we're going to be looking at, and this is going to be Emmanuel's art, Mao Mao. Got it confirmed, Mao Mao's art. This one, we can go off on some tangents on this one. So let me bring up the critique first, or what his goal was. Okay, so boom. So Mao Mao says, I don't have any reference for this. I just started sculpting with paint and it came out that way. I just tried to make the proportions correct. Once I made the base for the face, I tried to get a Lovecraftian mood. Sorry for the late reply. Time zones are different. That's the great thing about Discord, though. Whatever time zone is, you can post up, you can put, critiques, you can put up your own art. That's why I love the Discord so much. And I was trying to get the values right, even with the strange skin color. So that's probably the number one thing we're going to focus on. I know we kind of focused on values and stuff before, but it's worth repeating, always worth repeating. But then we're going to talk about vibe and mood. And I think that's where we're really going to start hitting something, because you can really have some fun. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So really cool, expressive. I think this is in Rebel as well. I can tell just by the paint rendering. I think this was Rebel 5, did he say? I think he did say he put it in Rebel 5. So I love the paint drips. I love Rebel. So we have some cool stuff. So this is Medusa, I believe. Yeah, Medusa by Mao Mao's art. Just awesome. I love the color palette. I love bringing in those greens. I think that's a smart move. Really good stuff, especially working from imagination. Very, very tricky. So my goal, I'm also going to work from imagination. We're not going to bring up any reference. My number one piece of advice, even if you're working from imagination, use reference. But to stay within the confines of what we're doing and being in the mind of the artist, we are also not going to use reference. So the proportions might be off, the anatomy might be wrong, but we're going to look at what we have here and try to accentuate what is working, and then look at what we can do to really drive home that kind of eerie, ethereal, creaturey, Lovecraftian vibe. So whenever I think Lovecraft vibe, I think of like Cthulhu, like, with the tentacles and stuff, especially with the hair. But I think of, it sounds weird, but like mold. I think of the weird greens and grays and browns, which will definitely help because we have blues and purples and greens. Sounds like it wouldn't, but it will. Because we can make sure that our creature, our Medusa, is the focal point if we neutralize everything else. So there's many ways we can go from here. We can either flesh this out to have Medusa in an area, like in a location, or we can make it almost like a Rembrandt portrait study, because you already have the bust, you already have the face, you can easily extend the neck, you can add some regal clothes, you can do that type of stuff. So what we're really going to focus on is going to be, one, working from imagination, and two, what can we do to really drive the point home of a creature design? And this is something I've started doing, and there's some NDA stuff that I've worked on that I can't show yet, but it has to do with creatures. And it's fun. It's different. It's vibrant. It's exciting. The shapes are weird. And like, you get into this, I don't know, sometimes you get into a routine as an observational artist. If you're looking at reference all the time, if you're trying to do, a like for like, and oh, is that right? And do the colors match? It's very algorithmic, formulaic, like you're following the formula. But with imagination and with creatures, you can really let that sixth sense kind of go crazy. And that's what we're going to do here. We're really going to embrace this. So once again, first thing, of course, because if I'm not anything, I'm a creature of habit. Let's put it that way. Boom. Color. So what we have here is a whole lot of midtones, which is fine. Actually, I think starting with midtones is the best way to go, because then you can establish what your value range is. How dark do you want to get? How light do you want to get? So first thing I want to do, let me go ahead. Let me start this. I am going to once again get rid of all the white. And you can do this a variety of different ways. You can actually just crop, like do a crop in. But you made the canvas this size for a reason, so we're going to keep the canvas this size. I'm going to come right here. And whenever I see this, for some reason, I think of what is it called? Chiaroscuro? Chiaroscuro? Working from blacks and coming into light. I think I sense something like that happening here. So really what we're doing here is we're getting rid of all the white around our main idea. We'll re-refine some of these. And even just doing this, you notice how it's not super mid-tony. In fact, it's actually it's a 7 out of 10 on the lightness scale. So it's still pretty light. But I just didn't want pure white to mess with us, because I want to give us that flexibility to use pure white if we want to. But if it's everywhere in the canvas, it's not special at that point. So I'm just going to kind of come in here. Like I said, we're going to refine some of these shapes. But so we have this. And then what I want to do is I actually want to extend this out. So first thing I'm going to do, I don't know if this is exactly kind of the way and the look that you might want, but I'm going to color pick. And then there's a long neck right there. Okay. Something like this, right? So we just kind of added the neck and some of the top of the shoulders. Okay. Nothing too crazy. Same thing. I'm just going to kind of mimic one of those shapes that you have here. Just be like, yes, we're still working on the same thing. So some of these edges and stuff. So really what the goal was, let me bring this up so I don't misquote. Trying to get the values right, even with the strange skin color. So good news is, since we're working in value right now, we strip color out. Color does not matter, okay? There's that saying in art, and I think it's absolutely true, that says value does the work, color gets the credit. So it doesn't matter what colors you use, if your values are right, your colors should look good. So the first thing I would want to do, and this makes our life way easier, we have to set up a light source. We have to. Because the light source is going to tell us everything, okay? So we need to set up where the light is coming from. I would argue the easiest lighting to go to, and you'll see this a lot in concept art because they got to get it done fast, is either going to be directly front light, a really harsh direct front light, looking down a headlight, or a light that's kind of in front and above, pointing down at an angle, like so. Like, let me go to my webcam here. Okay, let me move this light. This is going to look really funny. Oh my God. So it's either going to be this type of lighting, you know, where it's, sorry, the cable's not long enough. I could move it over here. Actually, let me move my other light over. Well, no, that one's stuck to the deal. I know what I'll do. Phone. Let me do this. So either you're going to have your top light like this, right? Where you get these shadows under here. You get the shadows. I have a big beard, so it kind of blocks all that. But you see like where the eye sockets, kind of have that shadow look to them. So you have something like that. Or you kind of have a direct front-facing light like that. So stuff looks kind of flat, but you still get like the side of the nose. You get, a few things for the eyes, maybe the ears. Stuff that's just not facing the you can do Rembrandt light. You can do let's see, where would Rembrandt light be? I know my lighting's not quite set up for it, but basically to where the side that's not facing the light gets like a little light triangle. That's how you can tell if you have the Rembrandt light set up right. But really up front or up top. For dramatic purposes, I like this one. I like almost like a holy light shining down on something. So the reason why we want to establish our light source is it's going to tell us where our shadows go, where our highlights go, and what happens to our midtones. Remember the rule. Anything facing the light, directly looking at the light, gets the light. Okay? So let's say we have our light right up here. Okay? And it's coming down like so. So we have our light. Actually, it's going to be further back. It's going to be like up here. Oh, amateur hour. Amateur hour. Okay. So we're going to have our light that's going to be right around here, right? And it's going to come there. And then, so we have our God rays that are sort of kind of funneling, you know what I mean? Like around this head. So this is going to dictate where our highlights and our shadows are. So first, let's find our forms. And to do that, we're going to put in our shadows first. Okay. So our shadows, let's say for drama purposes, we're going to do pretty dark shadows. Okay. And then I'm going to actually use a non-wet brush. It's going to be a fairly opaque brush because I want to just make some design shapes. Okay. So we're going to stay completely zoomed out. What I want to do, if the light's like right here, that means this stuff right here is going to be in shadow. And we're not going to worry about cast shadows yet. We are, but working from imagination, you want to put stuff and block it in one thing at a time, because if you get too complicated early, you're just going to kind of confuse yourself. I know I do. So if that's like right here. So really what I'm doing is I'm just in my mind, I'm saying, okay, if the light's here and it's kind of like, let's put a highlight in just so you know where the light is hitting. So let's say the light is hitting like this and like this and like this. And it's kind of at that 3/4 view, you know? Let's say we have that. I'm definitely going to change those, but you'll see why I put those there. Just think in 3 dimensions. I know that's easy to say and very hard to do. But really, if you have Blender, if you have something like that, and you have a way to get a 3D model and have like a square or a sphere or an oval or something, and move that light around, you're going to start learning what happens to shapes as it gets light and, it comes out from shadow and stuff like that. So really, we're just putting in the most bare bones basic light structure we can. And we've got like a bridge of the nose. And these values might be off, but then you're also going to do like where the jawline is, right there, where that bottom jaw. So we have that ear right here. This is blocking that. So this comes over here. Yeah, I'm just trying to think in 3D where some of this stuff is, So like that, you get that nice kind of wet tentacle look, And this is a very basic pass, of course. Trying to do this. Let's do... And then if the light's coming here, that means this shadow gonna kind of be opposite of where the light is. Does that make sense? Now, once again, we're not using a reference, but definitely use a reference. Do as I say, not as I do. But just to show how you can get started on a preliminary sketch level, you do something like this. Then if this comes here, that's blocking, right? So this, we can kind of refine that shape. Once again, you have your darker darks right here. That is going to come over here and catch. That's actually going to be blocked for a little bit until it comes out into the light. And then the head itself is really going to cast a big cast shadow right here. I know we said we're not really going to worry about the cast shadows, and we're not, but just to get ourselves started is what we're going to do. Okay, so you can see how we're starting to make this look like it has a little bit of form. We're just outlining some key features of the face. We're coming in, we're making this happen. Now, okay. Do that. Do that. Bring this in. Kind of accentuate some of the eye stuff. So, we have something like this. Now, if we kind of come in and all these little shapes, you have to remember, if it's facing the light, it gets the light. If not, it's going to be part of the shadow. Right? So, kind of working this way. And working that way. Okay. And I do like kind of the shiny light this way because it does add to that sort of slimy, you know what I mean? Like just nasty, which is really cool. Got some of this. And then you can even hit some of these, getting the light as well, because anything that sticks out and faces the light is going to get the light. You can also have kind of that rim light. You don't want to overuse rim light, I don't think. But it is effective. It can be really effective. And then you can kind of take the values you already have here. Really, let's kind of fix that shape of that nose. There we go. So it's kind of facing this way, right? We're going to kind of keep it angled since you have it like that. So once again, definitely use reference because it's going to make this type of stuff way easier. But every once in a while, it is good to just work from imagination this way. And then I like this idea of kind of the mossy look. So I'm going to accentuate some of those shapes. And that way we can kind of have some fun with those shadows as well. And then even some of the highlights that it's like catching it, maybe part of the face, which is a really bizarre look, you know. And then the eyelids, the bottom eyelids, like I said, are going to catch that light. Then if I do this, the eyes, to give them life, we're going to put the highest highlights in there, right? Then we're going to actually add that little dot to the nose. We're going to take what we learned from our little portrait study, do that. And then we can even, let me get the wet brush now, come in with that lighter look and really add in some of these highlights. Remember how we had the forehead, we had those hot spots, remember? So we're going to take what we learned from that and actually integrate it into here. So we have this, we have our hotspot, we have something like this. So this is why doing those type of studies is actually really valuable, because you can remember those lessons. You can remember where the locations on these shapes were, and then you can mimic them better from imagination. So we have that. This is going to be kind of a, this right here, this actually is going to be the side of the head because of the angle. We got that. So we're starting to make it make sense. Now the eyes, I think, need a little bit of work, at least, you know, on as far as like my painting skills go. Like if I were to kind of look at this and keep going with it, that's the stuff I would focus on, is like eyes, and then make sure that this is looking kind of the way we want to. Just put in those features of the face, you know, and like that mouth actually. So the mouth, instead of going like that, the mouth actually wraps, almost think of it like a circle going around the face. So we're going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of that and that. We have that. Do this. This is actually going to be coming up a little bit. I don't want him to smile though. So we're actually going to bring that lip down a little. There. That's going to grab. So you can see that we're just starting to add a little bit of shape. Now, of course, the location of this stuff can always change. The angles and stuff like that. I was just trying to continue the motif that maybe you created and accentuate on a little bit. Let's actually bring those up and then bring this down to really, oh, you already had that. Because like I said in the intro, I don't want to like, oh, paint just like me. But I do want to try to give a little bit of guidance on the ways I would start to try to problem solve. And then, like, this would be a decent way to go about it until you want to get reference to be like, because I know the cheek is wrong. I know for a fact it is. So that's the type of thing I would look at reference for. I would also look at reference for, I would look up squid, or I would even look up like a sushi bar and see, because those would be lit. That would be food that would be lit a certain way. How does light refract off of these tentacles? You know what I mean? Like how does that work? And then also, I bet there's so many little subtle value changes and also color changes that you wouldn't be able to see without reference. So that's why stuff like this really kind of comes in handy whenever you're doing a reference pass. Whenever you have your reference there, getting shapes, getting angles, getting that type of stuff is just super in here. Let's actually bring that out a little. And then let me do that. Just to kind of, once again, mimic this look that we're going after. Let me bring that up. See, I'm just kind of now using these shapes, kind of the negative shapes, to build that story of, here's the squid stuff, and then let's do that. And then if we wanted to like bring one out to really kind of mimic, now it looks like Leon Kennedy hair from Resident Evil 2. You know what I mean? Just, you can play around with these shapes and see how they mimic without really going out of your way to make it more difficult on you. And then we'll do that. And since the ear is closer, we will actually just darken up that ear. See what I mean? Because as something's going further back into the background, it's going to start matching more of the background color. So like, let's say this one's the furthest back. We're actually going to get some of this background color, paint this in. So it's still darker, but it's lighter than the other ones. So what that's going to do, even if you're not painting a landscape, you can still use atmospheric perspective. For instance, this stuff is, further back, so I want it to be a little lighter in value than the stuff it's right next to. It actually kind of has that. And see, that's a little too far back, I think. So I actually want to darken this one up. I don't want it to be as dark as the ear, but I want it to be darker because I want it to be closer. It makes more sense to be closer. But then it's kind of like receding back from us. Same thing here, and you get this nice wobbly look of tentacles and stuff. So this is once again kind of a very illustrative comic booky way to go about it, but this should start giving you some ideas about where you want to go further. And then just to we do something like that. We just kind of add these in here, of course. Just the sketchy lines. They don't have to mean anything. If I do this, let me get a little darker, because if there's no light here, it makes it harder to kind of work with. There we go. Something like this. Get some of those lost edges in there. And then you're going to see it start kind of taking more of a shape. Now, I will say the reason why the eyes look kind of off is the value is too light. If the shadows are really hitting this way, we're just going to darken these eyes, because there's no way that amount of light would get through. And then we're just going to really darken this up, kind of do the outline side of it. You know what I mean? Because there's not a lot of light that's going to get there. Yeah, really a super great way to get your lighting on point is to make your eyes darker. Because if they're going to be covered by the brow bone, they're going to be covered like this, it's going to add believability to whatever portrait you're working on. And then I'm going to do this. So like I said, this is a very quick pass. Probably wouldn't be that drastic of a value change. If we're going to keep these values kind of dark, we're going to do that. And then let's move that right there. So if we use the rule that eyes are an eye's width apart from each other, you can do that based on kind of the curve of it. It would be more. Here we go. Something like that. It's a little too bright there, but you can kind of see what we're working with. That should be straight across, because this should come up. Actually, this should. Nice thing that very nice thing that Clip Studio added was a liquefy tool. I love the liquefy tool for stuff like this. Just bump it around until it starts to look right. Yeah, so this is looking better. You can even kind of move the nose back, move that nose back, move that up, brow bone over. Just kind of maneuver the stuff, It's funny now, I'm getting flashbacks of like Handsome Squidward. Where he has the really chiseled cheek. Anyway. Now I can't unsee it. All right. So you see what I'm saying? You got that. Okay, so our values are in. Great. Now let's say we're happy with our values. Now, if you just go, you duplicate the colors you already have, you bring this up, and then you go to color, boom. Now you're working with something a little crazier. And see, I like these reds and stuff. So what I would argue, so you remember how we talked about hotspots in regards to value? There's also hotspots in regards to color when it comes to a face. So let me make a new layer. I'm going to go to color. This is going to way over exaggerate stuff, but I want to show you something. So I'm a big believer, let me go to the webcam. I'm a big believer in what is called the T-shape. So your T-shape is going to be from ear to ear, so across, and then from the bridge of your nose down to your lips, to the bottom of your lips. The T-shape is important because that's where all of your blood flow is going in your face, which means it's going to have a slightly more red blood globule, like, you know what I mean? Like if the circulation's there, that means that's where the color is going to be. So what I really like to do, I'm going to do a color. Actually, let me do an overlay layer to really kind of drive this point home. I am going to get a red, and I'm going to put the red in the T area where, oh, that's liquefy. Whoops. Whoopsie doodle. Okay. So I'm going to put that red right here in this T area, right? And lips, we already had some right there. But even coming down here, Now, we have that. Now, right here on the chin, kind of down here, this is going to be more of kind of a bluish, kind of a gray blue. Really, the way I think of it is because, I mean, men have facial hair here. Actually, everybody has facial hair. It's women usually. Some people have lighter, very fine hair, but everybody has hair on their face. I mean, you just do. As mammals, we do. So this is going to be around the 5 o'clock shadow area is going to be a little more desaturated, a little more gray than what your skin tone is, just by the very nature of the way the circulation of the face works. So what I would do is I would take the color you have, bring it a little closer to gray, and then kind of just bark in this, right? And you can even mimic that, let's say, on the tentacles. Let's say they have the same circulation rules as your deal. So there, and then the middle of it is going to be more of the red. And, you know, that might not even be true, but let's just say for this and what our exercise is, that's what we want to do, okay? So we got the red, red. Okay. And red, sure. Okay. And then we said the other one was going to be kind of that blue color, but desaturated. And then that's going to be near the tips. Tip. Okay. We'll do that. Cool. Now up here, I usually like to use kind of a yellow mix of whatever my skin tone is. I mix it with a little bit of yellow. I don't really know the full reason behind it. I think there's actually less circulation up here, even though your brain is in your cranium. I think that's where all the blood's going. So it's not really coming out here. Also, this is the easiest place to get sunburn. I can tell you that as a bald guy. Sunburned all the time up here. So what I'm going to do this. So let's talk a little bit about color theory. Since we're using blue as a skin tone, what is the opposite of blue? Look right here. Opposite of blue is yellow. Already have yellow down here. Or actually, we already have gray down here. But because of the rules of color theory, that means as it's going to gray, gray is always going to be in the middle of your color wheel. So I'm not a big fan of necessarily going around the color wheel. I'm a fan of going through the color wheel. So if we're at blue and we want it a little more yellow, what does that mean? we go towards gray because the midpoint between blue and yellow is gray. If you mix both of them at 50%, half and half, you get gray. That's just how it works. That's how complementary colors work. So if we want to nullify that blue and make it more yellow, see, if we came over to the yellow and did this, that does not look very good, right? Because that's just equal amounts. One, yellow is natively brighter than blue is, but also that just doesn't seem right. So let's say we have our blue, then we're going to slightly desaturate it. In theory, this is now more yellow than what we had before. It's also lighter because it's catching more of the light. And that's a good way to do it. Now let's say we want to darken some of these shadows. Instead of grabbing a black, actually grab your same face color and keep it on overlay layer and slightly saturate it a little bit more, maybe a little darker. And what you're going to see is some beautiful, like vibrant. I'm a big fan of, I used to always say that color lives in the shadows. I agree with that to a certain extent, but the more I'm studying, the more I'm realizing color actually lives in the midtones. Maybe your darker midtones is where you're really going to get some blast of saturation. So we have something like this. Still looks kind of bizarre, right? But still looks pretty neat. Like there's still something pretty cool about this. Let's say we really wanted to drive up the interest on this. We have a little bit of this. We have some more colors that we want to splash. How do we pop this out? How do we pop out our character in kind of that Rembrandt-y way? I would say saturated complementary colors would be a great way to start. So instead of using yellow because you have blue, because if you use the yellow and you brighten it, I don't know, man, that can work. But like that could be kind of an eyesore a little bit. It's just a little too much. It's a little too fruit salad, a little too in your face. But this kind of gave it away. So since I'm on overlay and I used yellow and went over purple, guess what it made? See that beautiful neon green? Let's try green. I think this is going to look really awesome. So if I come down here, yeah, man, look at that. That's cool. Because you're still staying on the cool side of the color wheel. You're not really warming it up all too much. You are a little bit, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's warm. You know what I mean? You're still staying on the kind of the green, yellow, something like that. You're really kind of popping that out. Very, very cool look to that. And then, so let's kind of elongate a little this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. So now, I mean, you're just super saturated, right? Now let's kind of desaturate that green and bring it in to the middle a little. Because by desaturating this green, we're really going to want those blues to pop. So we have something like that. Let's extend that out here. I'm going to use that nice deal right there. Let's hit a few of these. Bring that in. So this can be kind of an eyesore. Just by the nature of having very, very saturated colors. So what you can do, let me go ahead and make an adjustment layer. Correction layer. Let's go to hue, saturation, luminosity. So the hue, you can just change everything and all that math still balances out. So like you can get some really trippy looking stuff, right? So we're not going to change that very much. We are going to lower the saturation like this. And then the luminosity, we're actually going to darken quite a bit. So why do we do that? We have this. Now we have a layer that can be masked, right? So we have this. So before and after. See how much brighter and crazier that is than this? That really tempered it down. It darkened it. Cool. Now we have a mask over here. I'm going to get the wet brush, either that or like an airbrush. Any sort of soft brush is good. And I'm going to pick black. Everything white is being shown. If I paint black on this mask, check this out. So we established that our light is up here, correct? And it's pointing down. So what if we paint the highlights in black on our mask? What happens? So check this out. Remember those hotspots for value we talked about? Let's hit them all. Oh, actually, I need an eraser. Clip Studio Paint is different. Instead of using black and white as a brush to put in your stuff, Clip Studio actually uses the brush to add white and the eraser tool to add black. It's weird, but you know, it's a learning curve thing. So yeah, I have my soft eraser. And then lightly, very, very lightly, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to, anything that faces the light, I'm going to hit with this eraser. Okay. And then that bottom lip's going to catch the light for sure. That, we got this right here. Got this. Got that. And do you see how, like, weird and trippy that is? That's cool, right? Like, then you can maybe do some outskirts of the eye. And then you can do some of these tentacles that really caught that light, you know? So don't be afraid to use, especially working from imagination, use the digital tools that you have. Use your layers, use your masks, use stuff like that. And you're going to get some really neat looking, yeah, so there, light really hits there. You're going to get some really neat looking things. Okay. And there, I'm actually gonna get that and get rid of some of these. And then once again, any sort of highlights you want to put in, any sort of focal point you want to put in, that's whenever you can come in and render. So we have all this. Now we can make a new layer. We have these colors now. Now we can color pick. So let's say I want to add a little bit of lightness here to the eye sockets. I don't want to make it too light though. Bring that over here. Let's do that. Let's keep that like in shadow a little bit. That looks pretty cool. You know, got that. Something like this. See, and now we can come in and just start rendering this paint. And you're going to have some awesome looking shadow shapes and yeah, really it's just about, at this point, like I said, this is a little while back is when you would really get any sort of reference you want. Because like I know the nose doesn't really look like this. Like it has to have more of a two sides and a front. Like kind of like the do right there. So do that, do that. See, and I'm just working based on what I remember from like studying anatomy. So it's not exactly right. But like I said, working from imagination, you can have a whole lot of fun just like putting stuff in, seeing how it looks, and then going for it that way. Do that. And then we can even bring some of these highlight tones that we have in the head. Do that. It's going to darken that. That does come out. Cool. Cool. Okay. So yeah, we can do some of this and actually integrate some of those into here to tie in the fact that this would be his hair. You know, it would be kind of surreal for us to think so because our hair doesn't look blue like that and it's not squid tentacles, but it still follows the same rule. It follows the same rule of it just leading into the hair. And then now it's funny because now it looks kind of like a pompadour type thing. Like a little Conan O'Brien coiffed of hair. But you see what I mean? Hopefully this is starting to come together a little bit. There's not much else to really talk about. It's more of, like I said, this is really subjective. So this one was just a joy to kind of come in and paint. And yeah, now I'm kind of getting rid of some of the areas to where the I'm kind of just color picking and blending and sort of getting this stuff to some part of a render. And then let's do that as for like like that. But hopefully some of this made a little bit of sense. Just kind of going in and having fun making these shapes. Like I said, I'm very, very weak on working directly from imagination, but I'm trying to practice it more. I think it is a very important skill to learn. I think it is very critical to make sure that your creative eye and your imaginative eye is just as well honed as your observational eye. Let me actually do this. Let me bring that. That kind of threw me off a little. There we go. Get that. That. But yeah, like I could paint stuff like this all day. Super fun. And then you still get some really cool colors. And then at any point, if you want to just make sure that your lighting is on point, you can go above what you're doing, make yet another new layer, fill it with complete black, change it to color mode, and then just tweak whenever you get a good reference, you just tweak your values. You know what I mean? So yeah, let's bundle this stuff up. So we can kind of look at a quick before and after. Let's do that, and then maybe cool. So yeah, so this is going from before, and if the goal was just try to make the proportions correct. Once I made the base for the face, I tried to get a Lovecraft, and I was trying to get the values right, even for a strange skin color. So we wanted to make it kind of surreal, keep those crazy colors, those crazy vibrant colors, and then make it just something really fun to look at. So I like yours because it's gothic. It feels very gothic. Mine feels less gothic because I refined it too much. So keeping it splattery and painterly and stuff like that, and even like the lack of eyebrows, really cool. I just went on autopilot, and whenever I did mine, and whenever I added my stuff, I just made it, whatever. But you can always get rid of those eyebrow ridges. You can do crazy things. You can even add, like, let's say I wanted to add, let's do this. Let's say I wanted to add like one of these like weird tentacle things right here. Let's say I wanted to add some of these just right here, like on the face, right? And then we're going to follow the same rule of the lighting. So we got that. Whatever faces the light gets the light. Whatever doesn't. So we have this, we have that, we have these. It's very weird. And then we kind of have that edge highlight that we can do there. You know, just really kind of gross looking stuff, but you can hit it with different colors and you get the greens and those reds and those beautiful like splashed out colors. Very, very cool. And then you can even do like little etching type things. Let's say there's a weird like scar here. You can do that, and then you're still going to have your highlights next to, actually be the other way. You're going to have the shadow and then a highlight on the other side because that's catching. Same thing here, because that edge is going to be catching the highlight. You got that. And then we have something like this, but then, so you have these really cool little like storytelling elements that you can add. So you see what I mean? And then you can even bring that into your just repeat shapes. Repeating shapes is a really good prompt and a really good way that you can tie in design sensibilities together. It makes all of your art more believable whenever you repeat shapes. So we have that. That one's a little, I could probably just get rid of that one. But anyway, yeah, I hope, like I said, I could just play around with this forever. So once again, really awesome ideas, really creative stuff, really good start. Just with this, it sparked all sorts of ideas and all sorts of imaginative things, and just really cool. I love that look. So probably there's going to be some people out there that, you know, maybe a lot of people out there that actually prefer this version. There's a lot going for this. There's a lot going for this. Just really kind of, it's funny. While I'm thinking about it, let me check something real quick. I think I made something kind of like this. It was more of a mermaid sketch. Oh yeah, I did it in May for Mermaid. Let me find mine. And it's funny, I wonder how similar it's going to look to what I just painted over top of yours.
3 hours later.
Oh, yes. Ha, perfect. Found it. Okay. Let me do that. Open with. So I did kind of do a mermaid thing. This was under a sketch deal. I knew it was somewhere. I'm going to drag it over in just a minute once it opens. Boom. So I did something kind of like this. And you can see I did sort of that same thing. I did some different, you can see the T-zone. You can see the lines right there. You can see the mouth is red. You can see I did sort of that look. And then I just kind of went buck wild on the rake brushes and stuff like that. But yeah, using the same weird colors. So it's kind of funny that you started with this, because these are a lot of the kind of neon greens and stuff like that. But then we come over here and I kind of just made this into this. But see what I mean? You never know what it's gonna be like. But yeah, so yeah, I did that. Yeah, mermaid number 1, and that's the only one I did this year, was one mermaid sketch. But anyway, that will do it for this Patreon Paintover. This will actually do it for the year 2021. Thank you all so much for all of your support, all of your comments, the love on YouTube. We're going to be hitting YouTube hard in 2022. We're going to be doing some shorts, some different like art school style shows like this. We're really going to embrace it. It's really going to be a year for good growth. We're going to really build our community. We're going to really focus on the community, and we're really going to make this thing into something truly special. So if there's something you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments going into the new year. I already have a film made for February, a nice little video about an NDA assignment that I have for Bambox, one of my clients. And yeah, I can't talk about it until around Valentine's Day. But I already have the footage for it. I'm going to be editing it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a behind the scenes look. I'll put it this way. I signed 3,000 autographs for limited art prints. coming out for an upcoming BAM box. So you get to see what it is, the big reveal. You get to see me do some autograph stuff. I even deliver it to the post office, the whole thing. So that type of stuff is what we're going to be doing in 2022. There's a lot of stuff under NDA. Big things happening, guys. Trust me, trust me, trust me. Stuff that might even define my career. What could it be? Well, there's only one way to find out. Have a happy new year. Stay safe for this holiday season. Hey, it's the day before Christmas now. It's the 24th. So if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you celebrate anything, happy stuff. Happy everything. Just have a happy life. Be nice to each other. Be kind. And we will see you in 2022. Take care.